Welcome to the IdeaCast interview series, episode 22. My guest on this episode is Gall, a self-described truth teller and keeper of realness. And after having had a conversation with her, I can vouch for that. And so it was a good and thoughtful exchange of ideas and insights from her work and what she can provide for you as a personal coach for business. And if you are a creative, then she is a coach for you to consider. And so we talk in this dialogue about matters related to work and matters that creatives can encounter, such as the work-life balance and what to look for when it comes to you reaching that threshold of being out of balance with the work-life relationship. And so we talk about things like burnout and, again, what to look for and how to recognize those signs of burnout. We also talk about things like people-pleasing and the shadowy side of that. We all want to be available for people and be present for people, but there is, again, this shadowy aspect that we need to be aware of. So we cover that too. And we also go into a program that Katie has called Committing to Your Shit. And so we will talk about that, and that is something that you can engage with. So there will be information in the description field on how to access Katie's website and her social media platforms. So sit back and relax and enjoy the conversation, and thank you so much for being here and joining us. And Katie, welcome to the IdeaCast interview series. I'm so glad to have you here today, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
I'm so glad to be here.
Awesome. Now, I would love to both for myself and for the audience, I'd love to hear your backstory, a little biography of Katie and how you arrived where you are today.
Yeah. Okay, so I am where I am today.
Simple task.
I know, right?
And where are we today? Yeah.
So I'm a personal coach for business owners and creatives, a life coach and a health coach. So I kind of combine those.
Okay.
And at this point, I'm helping freedom-seeking creative women navigate starting and running a business that fits their life and not the other way around.
Okay.
And yeah, my way of getting there is a bit roundabout.
Okay. I love those stories.
Yeah. I grew up knowing that I was going to be a singer and performer.
Okay.
And I did that. I went to school for it. I went to NYU and I got a bachelor's and a master's degree in vocal pedagogy and vocal performance.
Nice.
And yeah, and while that was happening, I ended up with a health scare that led me down the path of working with a holistic health coach. And it was incredibly life-changing for me and informative. And so I ended up deciding that I wanted to kind of add that to the docket. At the time, I was probably waiting tables. I was waiting tables. I was teaching voice.
Okay.
I might have had an office job at that point too. Like I was doing a lot of things and I just kind of needed to consolidate, right?
Okay.
So I decided to go to school, back to school for a 1-year program to become a holistic health coach.
Okay.
Did that for a couple years. Found that I didn't necessarily love like giving people food plans. I was much more interested in their brains and in why they were doing the things they were doing, what their motivations were, what their inner limiting beliefs and thoughts were. Which led me over to transformational life coaching. So I got certified as that. And then I found the people that were coming to me, were creatives for the most part, because that's just a big part of my audience, artists, writers, performers, anything along those lines, who wanted to be able to actually pursue their art without feeling bogged down by their 9-to-5 employment, their thing that just kind of like sucked all of their energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I just, having started 2 businesses myself, one as a voice teacher and performer and one as a coach, I just found myself coaching people and getting their businesses up and going with them. And so I ended up pivoting a little bit and like moving a little bit more into that as I said, personal coach for business owners and creatives. So we do some of the consulting that a business coach would do, but we also add in a lot of the life coaching pieces. Yeah.
Awesome. You're like the Vermilion knots, the grass with the circles that sort of go into each other, and there's that center space. You're doing that, and I love that, because to seek advice and coaching and mentoring from someone, to have that dynamic spectrum available to them is awesome, that you can provide that for them.
Yeah, and I find the people that I work with tend to be multi-passionate. They have a lot of things. They want to have their hands in a couple different pots. They don't necessarily just want to do one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able, like, so a big part of managing that is being able to manage your energy, being able to manage your thoughts, being able to do that inner work, and not just, okay, here's a list of how you start a business, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know one of the things you address is burnout in work, and I imagine with creatives that can be a unique sort of means for the burnout to express itself or to present itself. And I'm a bullheaded person, and so for 30 years I never burned out, but I finally experienced burnout in the last maybe 7 or 8 months, and it was for actually a volunteer project that I've been doing for about 3 years. And I get it. And I never did before, because I have a very obsessive personality, and I have I'm completely spastic. So I have tons of energy, but and I'm glad I did, because it's refreshing to know what other people are going through. And I'm an empath in that sense. So could you unpack that for us, and how you bring that into your coaching?
Yeah. So I'm very much a go and do things kind of person as well. And so one of the things that I would just say from the beginning is, burnout is so individual. Like when you hit burnout, and for what things you hit burnout for, can be so individual. And especially in the performance world. So as a creative generally, but the performance world especially, burnout is an expectation, basically.
Yeah. Just, be ready.
And especially in live theater, we have the week before a show opens is called Tech Week. Okay. And that's basically just burnout week for so many artists. It's just like, it's the week where you're there late at the theater every single night. And so it's even like, it's like built into the structure of how you get a show up and going. So, and then throwing on top of that, like, women's burnout versus men's burnout, women's expectations versus men's expectations. It can be a tricky one to work around, especially if you are someone who is ambitious, who wants to be able to do a lot of things. Accepting that there's a limit to what you can actually accomplish is really difficult. There's a limit to the amount of energy that you can give to something. Yeah. And so going along with burnout, boundaries. That's what we go into a lot. Yeah.
Right. So burnout is a coach in its own right, that teaches you about your boundaries, and if you're practicing that awareness of your environment, that can lead you to that conclusion, or that new establishment of boundaries for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Could you list maybe 2 or 3 bullet points for folks that may not even be aware that they're entering into burnout, or they're fully immersed in burnout? Like a couple of bullet points for what burnout symptoms look like, and especially in the arts or the creative people that can get burned out.
Yeah, definitely. So within the creative realm, if you have your creative thing that you love doing, that you've loved doing for a long period of time, and suddenly every time you come to it, it's feeling like it's feeling like a slog.
Okay.
It's feeling like, I have to do this thing again. And part of you knows that you like this thing, whether it's singing or painting or writing or whatever, right? You love doing this thing, but just coming to it, it's just, you don't have energy, right? Okay. So number 2 would just be, generally, are you running out of energy all the time? Are you constantly tired? Guys, we shouldn't be living in a state of fatigue all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We don't have to be there all the time. And then for me, and this is a really specific one to me, but that I've also found, once I point it out, other people kind of go, oh, my life is in my Google Calendar. That's my Bible.
Okay. Right.
When I start losing control of that, when things are getting double booked, or if I miss an appointment or something, that's when I know, that's my like warning sign for I'm doing too much.
Okay.
Because I can't even, it's all written down and I can't even follow it at that point. Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No amount of calendars and reminders can
Right.
steer you back in, and that happened with me the other day. And I'll be transparent. I was supposed to meet with you, and I had 3 things going at once, and I learned a lesson. I'm like, and a matter of fact, Katie, you'll be proud of me. I have a wax board right there.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
hard to
yeah.
see; it's out of focus, but I'm like, it's nice and big. It's my Google Calendar because I'm kind of
Yeah.
old, but I put that up because of that. I was like, all right, you can't do this, right? Because
Yeah.
I own a business. I manage a volunteer project, and I try to do interviews when I can too. And I have another fledgling business that I'm starting. And it's like, in my mind, I think I can do it all, but I can't, So.
Yeah. That's a lot. That's a lot. And like, if you think about any one of those things could probably be a full-time job, a 40-hour-a-week job. So if you have, I think you named 4 things, if I'm remembering correctly, that means that like you have 10 hours a week to give to each of those things. Well, how much can you actually get done in 10 hours a week? You can get a good amount done in 10 hours a week. Don't get me wrong. But like I think what happens with people like us who are ambitious, who are multi-passionate, we sort of forget that it's only 10 hours. It's not 40 hours if we have 4 things going on. And so we think we can get 40 hours worth of things done, and we try to. But then it ends up affecting the other 30 hours of things that we're supposed to do for the other 3 tasks.
Yeah. Guilty. Yeah.
Same, been there, done that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And to my credit, I try to, like the volunteer project that I had been putting about 25 hours a week in that, and then I scaled mid-year down to about 10 to 12 hours a week. But I'm handing it over, and I'm letting it go, and I'm going to put a token effort in going forward. So I'll be there maybe 2 hours a week instead of what I was doing. And then I can allocate that energy and time to other things, as well as being organized, and that's one of my problems. My partner is very organized. And so thank goodness I have some anchoring force in my life, because I am pure chaos. Again, I have a grease board now, and that should help. But yeah, I have the ambition and I have the energy, but it's sort of taming that horse that I've been working on. I'm in my early 50s now, and I've been working on that. And I've done okay, but it's all, I think, again, to have people. So in other words, if I'm a coach client of yours, I would expect you to say, Justin.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the point where like, okay, let's see if we can figure out a plan so that you are more organized. And then you come back next week and you tell me all the things that didn't work about the plan.
There you go. Yeah.
Right. And then we dig in and we try to figure out, okay, are there actual tactile issues? Like, did it not work because it like you kept leaving your planner everywhere, so you actually need a planner on your phone? Like, that's like a pretty simple fix, or is it every time I pick up my phone, I end up opening up Facebook and I end up doing all these other things, and I forget what I was doing to begin with. And so like, okay, then it's about, why are you distracting yourself? Why are you trying to avoid the thing? Right?
Yeah. One of my hacks for that is, and because I'd like to think there's some maturity in my age, it is that I make deals with myself. So I will commit to a project, and then I give myself a gap of about 15 to 20 minutes or whatever, depending relative to tasks that are needed to be accomplished. And I'll do the dumbest thing. I'll sit and watch train videos or airplanes, real childish things that I enjoy, that take me back, and I can just sit and not have to think or do anything. I just hit a YouTube live stream of a plane or something.
Yeah.
And that feeds that desire to procrastinate and be distracted, because I have managed to at least rein that into a little degree. So I make deals with myself. I said, well, you go through this and make sure this happens, and then you can have your little, it's not as much of a reward, but it's more of a, you get to do both. Like you can,
Yeah.
pretend like you're procrastinating and doing something you shouldn't be doing. So I don't know if I've psyched myself out or if I've just made good deal making within that committee of my mind. Yeah.
Well, it's, I mean, like you're getting your dopamine hit is what you're doing.
Yeah, the planes and
And
trains.
yeah, right.
I'm
One
simple. I
of the
just need
things,
little buzzy things. Sorry.
yeah. No, here's the thing. This is what this makes me think of. One of the things that I've been talking about more and more in my marketing and in my social media is the fact that I am actually diagnosed ADHD.
Mm.
And what you're talking about is actually very much a tactic for people who have ADHD. And please, understand I'm not diagnosing you, obviously.
Oh no!
But
Oh no!
like,
I'm a card-carrying ADHD. I was
oh,
diagnosed as dyslexic. They call it that in the '70s. But yeah, I'm super like
yeah.
captain
So
distraction. Yeah. So it's okay.
So that is,
You hit it. Yeah.
that is like standard ADHD coping mechanism. And it works.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, there are things that I need to do, and so again, I make deals with myself, and I'll be like, okay, you can have your little sugar after you do your work, and then after the sugar, you can go back. And also, I think it's a reset for my mind, and maybe again because I'm getting older, that. So I'll take, for instance, I want to watch a lecture that has something relevant to something I want to learn more about. So it's a mind numbing lecture. And then again, if I get 15 minutes break where the brain can cool down a little bit, and then, with silly things, and then I'll go back and maybe do something not quite as difficult, but, it's still something that requires me to think and interact with something outside of myself. So.
Yeah. So I know this is slightly off topic, but I find it interesting. So I'm going to share it.
Oh, please. Absolutely.
One of the things that I was reading somewhere, apparently what they've found is that people with ADHD, we do literally have a lower level of dopamine, I think, in
Okay.
our brains. And so we are so motivated by interest because we're seeking to get ourselves to a regular dopamine level all the time. And so something like sitting and watching a mind-numbing lecture, even if it's on a topic that you're really interested in, I have that issue too, where like I have to have, if I'm doing that, I have to have a game on my phone going that I can be doing something, or I like something else has to be going on at the same time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I literally can't pay attention.
Sure. And I use that tactic too. Like if I think I can divide my attention, if it's not a super serious topic that I'm listening to, I'll actually open another browser, and there's, for ADD people out there, and for aviation, I like to go to something called Flight Radar 24, which is a radar tracking map of, there's 15,000 flights in the air at any given time. And so for my region of the country, I can sit and track flights, because when I'm outside, I see contrails and I'm like, where are these flights going? And so it's it's information soup. You can find out what plane it is, what's the route number, what's the time to and from. It's got all this data, and so I just sit and absorb that. And in the background, somebody can be, now if it's super serious lecturing, like if it's something I don't do that, but if it's half serious, I'll go off. So I'm guilty of that. I'll have a couple tabs open, and I'll listen to a conversation, and then I'll have something in front of my face that's not too distracting, but it also, our circuitry is strange. So I guess it works. I don't know. But like I said, I have to be careful, because there's times when I've done that and I have no clue, and I got to go back 15 minutes and re-listen to something because I just wasn't, I couldn't divide at that point. So
yeah. And I mean, that'll happen to me as well, certainly. But in general, it's a tactic that, like, if you figure out the thing that can give you the dopamine hit, it means that you can go back and forth between the two, because like we can't really multitask, actually, right?
No,
the brain
not very well.
So you are actually going back and forth between the two, getting your hits of dopamine.
Okay. Which then keeps it's a cascade effect of keeping you interested and focused.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Honestly, when I found that out, I was like, I make so much more sense.
I'm not weird. I'm really doing something
so weird.
This is self-regulation.
My husband is very much not ADHD, and he can pay attention to anything for any length of time. And he thinks that I am the strangest thing.
Yeah.
Like I can't even watch a 45-minute TV show without having my phone open. And doing something. And I get everything.
Yeah,
It's not that I missed the TV show. It's just that like that's how I can actually pay attention to it.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're strange creatures. And like you, my partner, she can focus, she can read a book for 3 hours. I'll catch her sometimes and she's just flipping through a book, reading it. And I'm like, how do you do that? I can read, see, I can't read fiction because I'm too ADHD. I can read manuals, I can read technical things, I can read like philosophy books or whatever, where there's
Yeah.
something that, and again, I think you're right. It's just keeping that stream of attention going by way of dopamine because I'm interested and I want the next bit of information. I
Yeah.
want the next bit of information, but I
Yeah.
cannot sit down. I can't watch movies. I used to be able to watch movies, but I've kind of let that go. Not so much because of what we're talking about, but I think it was because I had to sacrifice that in order to be able to do another project. So I went through a
Yeah.
movie phase for years. I watched when we subscribed to the discs on Netflix, we'd
Mm-hmm.
watch probably 1,500 movies, and that was great. But then I was like, I can't do this and
Right.
start a new project that I want to do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That makes sense.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's
Off topic.
it is off, but I hope there are people out there that can relate, and because it is big, and I think
Yeah.
to again, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I think our culture is collectively in a state of ADD right now, where there's so much information overload, there's so much available to keep us
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
disfocused and out of sync, and so I think it is relevant, and I think it is important that we recognize what the immediacy of information is doing to us by way of
Yeah.
all media, all sources of media. So
Yeah. I mean, I think also on top of that, especially for women, it was just such an unrecognized thing for us. Like it took, I can't remember the exact statistic right now, but like it was something like boys are diagnosed with ADHD like 75% more than girls
mm,
are. And it's because girls tend to be more inattentive, whereas boys are bouncing off the walls.
yeah,
And so, and so like, and that was the case for me, is that I just could not pay attention.
yeah,
And it like I wasn't going crazy or anything. I just, if I wasn't interested, I zone out.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I think uh, at the time that I was diagnosed, there was some shame around it. Like it
Mm,
was, it was not, I didn't know any other girls who were diagnosed ADHD or
okay,
ADD at the time. Now it's technically ADHD.
okay.
Um, and I think, what's happening more and more, what I'm seeing more and more is women who are being diagnosed later in their lives realizing like, oh my God, all of these things suddenly make sense
Yeah,
because I'm
yeah,
actually this thing.
right. This is my
Yeah.
behavior pattern.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And gosh, that could cause a whole bunch of stuff in terms of that could fall into esteem issues and all these different things, and how you compensate for those things. So
Yeah.
I'm glad there's more light being shed on that, and that it is
Yeah.
being acknowledged for what, again, so women maybe have been less diagnosed or less focused on in that regard, because again, males
Hmm.
tend to be the token ADD
Right.
spaz kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of creative people, because
Mm.
people like traits of being ADHD, you're empathetic, you're intuitive, you're really a good people person. So a lot of the performers that I actually work with are frequently undiagnosed officially, but like they'll come at me with the same symptoms.
Yeah, yeah,
Wanting to start their business and they can't figure out how to get these systems in order because most of the information out there is built for men who
hmm,
are not ADHD, you
right,
know?
right.
And
It's
so,
structured.
yeah, a lot of the work that I do is really geared around figuring out your unique ways
Yeah.
that you need to build your business because it needs to work for you. It doesn't
Hmm.
need to work for Joe Schmo white man over there
Yeah, yeah. The
who's
the
working a nine to
normal
five.
fat part of the bell curve, right?
Right,
Right.
right, right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And as a left-handed person, I can offer that as an analogy that, the world was set up, when I was a kid, I used
Yeah.
right-handed scissors for my left hand. It's
Yeah.
almost the same like ADD. It's in fact, my education was a train wreck. My history was a train wreck because they didn't know what to do with dyslexics, or what they called dyslexics at the time in the 70s.
Uh-huh.
They just thought we were sort of cognitively impaired. And it's a shame because a lot of us fell through the cracks and we didn't excel.
Yeah.
We didn't get those grades that they were and so anyway, just like with women who can feel, what the hell's wrong with me? And then nobody's
Yeah.
looking for ADHD. It's the same thing across the board for boys and girls, I think, at a young age. And thank goodness, I hope that's improved, because like I said, they didn't know they actually took me to a psychologist in the 7th grade, I think, because they were concerned. They're like, well, maybe he's mentally not, up to speed. And I took the IQ test, and that came out nice. And so it wasn't that. And so, yeah, they didn't, but they still didn't know what to do with me.
They didn't know what to do with it back then. I do know that it's better now, but I know quite a few older adults who are incredibly intelligent individuals who are dyslexic, who didn't finish high school, who like couldn't make the education system work for them, because at the time they didn't, like, no one knew what to do. No one knew what was going on. And I think I think there is a little bit of a the ADHD community is having a little bit of an awakening, I think.
Yeah, good.
Like, at least around my age group. I'm 34, turning 35 soon.
Okay.
Like, there's quite a lot of women I'm finding who are like popping into Facebook groups that I'm a part of that are ADHD community, and they're just realizing, like, oh, all of you do the same things I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to the family.
Yeah.
Come on in
It's fun in here.
to the campfire. Yeah, we're all going to sit together and relate. And this ties in perfectly with what you were saying, is that the creatives and the entrepreneurs, I think that's what we did to compensate, if you will, in that we didn't go and pursue an academic career, but we are still nonetheless capable. And so I've been I call it chronically self-employed. I've owned my own businesses since the mid 90s. And so I had 1 or 2 jobs, but I mean, since the mid 90s, I've been more or less, I've owned businesses, and that's how I do it, because otherwise there's not much choice out there if you don't have at least a master's in something. And so, so anyway, that's how I did it. But if you're listening to this interview and you're under 30, don't despair. Just motivate, and that's what you work with, right? You find people who are struggling with that first step of entrepreneurship, and how do I set this ship out to sail, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that they need. I mean, it depends on what they're trying to do as far as the business that they're trying to create. But I meet a lot of people who think that they need to go back to school and they need to get a business degree. And I'm over here like, you want to open a store? Why do you think you need a business degree?
Yeah.
Like, you need to learn some stuff, certainly, but you don't necessarily need to go into like major college debt.
Yeah, you don't need an MBA. Yeah. That's one of the light sides of the democratization of information, is you can go online. And you have to be careful, but I mean, you can learn some things to help you be competent and proficient with basic accounting. Or there are default template programs out there that can work with you to give you that support. So it's not like it was in the, prior to say 2005. There's stuff available now that will help facilitate your first baby steps into entrepreneurship, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway. I think it's out there. So
yeah, it is out there. And one of the things that I'm a huge proponent of, and not everyone can do this right away, certainly most people can't do this right away, but like, as you're getting your business up and going, recognizing the things that you hate doing or that you're just really not great at, and getting real comfortable with that fact about yourself and delegating. That's why virtual assistants exist. That's why OBMs exist. That's why you hire a coach, is to help you kind of figure out those things.
Yeah.
So that you're not stuck doing stuff that sucks.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you free yourself up for being able to really focus in on what it is that you are good at, or what you're proficient at. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That makes absolute sense. And again, thank goodness for as you were saying, the accessibility of these apps, or again, coaches and things like that to help people through that. And it's a bottleneck. It's just once you find your legs underneath you when you start a business, and provided that commerce is coming your way, then the rest is a nice reasonably gentle learning curve. At least, again, the 3 or 4 businesses that I've owned, I there's that scary part, and then there's you just set sail and go. Because I opened a restaurant from scratch once, and it was like, whoa, yeah, yeah, let's just dive head first into the deep end. I mean, I'd been a chef for a while. I like 15 years of cooking, chefing kind of stuff under my belt, but to try to run a full goose business was a learning curve. We made it.
That's a different beast.
Yeah, we made it, but it was an interesting experience. Once we did that, it was proof of concept and this was with my partner again, and we look at each other and it's like, we lived through 5 years of running a restaurant together. We can get through just about anything because we managed to. Yeah,
you guys are strong.
And a lot of people say that you didn't kill each other, and then no, I mean, because we complement each other in a lot of ways, in the sense that she has her strengths, I have my strengths. I never try to impede her ability to do, and likewise for me. And so we just move forward in that regard. And so, yeah, there was very little friction other than just the tedium of having to be partners as well as business partners. Right. And so that's the one caveat I would say, if anybody is listening, and if you do go in with a romantic partner, a life partner, that maybe ahead of the endeavor, that you set out some boundaries, some ideas that you want to start with, like, we need time apart and we need time together outside of the business, and then we have to be business partners. So maybe there's 3 things to consider.
Yeah, and I think that's true not only of romantic partners or like within marriages, but also like that's true with anybody. Like the number of people that I know who have even just like tried to run a workshop with their best friend, let's say. And like it becomes really clear pretty quickly that like we're not on the same page.
Yeah.
You have to, like, it's really important to establish those boundaries. And just the other thing that comes to mind, have a contract about it.
Yeah.
Not to like legalize it necessarily, depending on the situation, but just so that we like have everything, have all our ducks in a row.
That makes perfect sense. It really, and it's a front end move that will save you grief on the other end. You'll walk away as friends, or at least respecting each other, because I think you're right. I think that can be because it's a romantic idea to say, let's do this, the workshop or whatever it is, and then the reality kicks in, and the logistics behind some of these things that people endeavor to do, and it can cause friction very, very quickly, I can imagine. So absolutely. Good advice. And now that we've covered ADD, I want to
which we totally meant to do.
Right. Well, I like tangents, because it's just it's flowing. It's a flow state kind of thing. I mean, so we're moving along, but I will break the flow a little bit, and because I want to make sure we have time to cover some of the things that I wanted to share with the audience, and that is people pleasing, and I might tie in like Superwoman syndrome in there too. So so let's talk about that too.
What do you want to know?
Okay, so first, I guess it would be important, and my partner's gone through this too, is in recent revelation, in self-examination, and that is to recognize that you're a people pleaser. And so we have to maybe define people pleasing as there's a shadow and a light aspect to that. So if you're gregarious by nature and you love, taking care of, you're a good hostess or host person, fine. But then there's a shadowy side to it. So maybe we can recognize, or you can offer us some insight on how we recognize when we are not people pleasing in a healthy way. And so where does that take off?
So I would start by saying men and women, absolutely, both can be people pleasers. Both are people pleasers. And people pleasing, like, at its core, comes down to a very biological human need to work together as a community.
Sure.
Right? Okay. That we are social creatures. 99% of us need that. There's the random hermits, but like
they're outliers. Little outliers.
Like not many people.
And we'll never see them, right? They're in their cabin somewhere, living well.
So it comes from something that is really innate and born into us.
Okay.
That being said, women are socialized from young ages to be helpers, to be givers. in a way that men are not. Men are socialized to be leaders, to be assertive, to
Okay.
all of those like stereotypical patriarchal bullshit
Role
things, right?
playing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And there's plenty of lovely men who have either worked through it or they had fantastic parents who did not do that to them so much, like I'm generalizing, but
Right, right. But as a rule, going back to the
as a
bell curve.
general rule, right,
Yeah.
women are taught to be givers, men are taught to be leaders. And so what that means is that women have a tendency, I have found, to be people pleasers to an unhealthy degree,
Okay.
significantly more than men.
Okay.
And what that looks like, when I say unhealthy, it might not mean that you are literally going to burnout in every single relationship you are in, whether it's professional, personal, you might not be going quite to that level.
Okay.
But you might be consistently making choices that actually don't feel super. The part of it that feels in integrity is that you are helping someone.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a part of it that doesn't feel in integrity. And you can sort of tell that, like, you can tell that that's starting to happen if you start to feel resentful. I have within me what I call my rage monster. um, and it is it is a monster born of all of the frustration and anger of that comes from feeling like I'm being taken advantage of. And the thing about that is I'm not I can think of very few people in my life who would actually actively want to take advantage of me.
Okay.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Most people in my life are lovely people. I have a great life. I have a lot of I've got a great support system. I have a lovely family of origin. I have built a lovely marriage. Like, for the most part, people in my life want to help me. Okay. So if I'm starting to feel that rage and resentment and that monster is starting to come up, what that tells me is that I am not doing what I actually want to be doing.
Okay.
And I'm not communicating that well.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so whether that's I want to be working on my business more and I keep being the one that does laundry all the time, or one of the ones that used to come up that my husband and I are very much working on. I work for myself. He works for a company. If the kids are sick, I have a 1 and 4-year-old. It's much easier for me to take all the time off. Mm. And we live in New Hampshire where we have like major flu season.
Yeah.
So it ends up meaning that at one point, it meant that I was taking way too much time off and my businesses weren't growing.
Okay.
That rage monster kept coming up.
Yeah.
Right?
I can see that.
Yeah. And it's not that he was doing anything wrong, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that people pleasing can be really subtle, but it can also be like if you are a doormat, right? That is people pleasing at the extreme.
Yeah. You're martyring yourself at that point.
Yeah. And I find in people in helping professions tends to be more burnt out than they realize because of this people pleasing. Because there's also, on top of I want to help people, there's also society is like rewarding me for helping people. I am a good person because I am helping people. And you got to be a good person to yourself too.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of times in conversations with my partner, I'll say there is good selfish and there's bad selfish, right? And there's a spectrum there. And so that if you have, and as you said, the doormat level, or there's the Warren Beatty, like what was the song, You're So Vain, like that, there's the spectrum there. And so if your needle is way down here, then you have to exercise selfishness. You have to make these token gestures for yourself. And it's like, I was selfish today. And, for a selfish person, it'd be like, so you made yourself a sandwich and that's selfish, or something silly like that. Like, most people would be like, that's not really selfish. And it's like, no, for me, it's very selfish. So you have to start somewhere and move your way up. But I think it's a habit or a practice in your life that if it's not inherently there and you're down here and you're pegged on that like you said, doormat status. I think it's important to familiarize yourself with what a healthy selfishness is, because and then I say to people, when I say that, I put an asterisk on the end and say, well, when you do that, you can give and not be resentful. You don't go to martyr status or the rage monster that doesn't come out, because you can give it away and you're like, I don't care. I can, off it goes, and I don't want anything
because
back.
my cup is filled.
Right.
Yeah.
It meant something for me, to do it.
Yeah. And this can happen at like any level of success. I just want to bring up an example. Back when I was still only a health coach, I was working with a woman who she was like second in command at this like really highfalutin New York company.
Mm-hmm.
She probably made tons of money. She had no problem paying me and supporting her entire household.
Okay.
And she wanted to lose some weight. And she would go to work. She would be there by 8 a.m. She would not leave until 7 or 8 p.m. And she would not eat the entire time. And so the thing that we worked on for 6 months, was her taking lunch. Taking a lunch hour. Like, getting her to sit down and eat some lunch. And she was so into the like, no, I'm in charge. I have to make sure everything runs. If I don't, I might get fired. If I get fired, then I can't take care of my family. And if I can't take
right,
all of the things that she had the hardest time seeing that, no, you get to take a break for a half hour to put food in your body, because that's how you're actually going to be better at your job.
Yeah. No one should begrudge you that, right?
Right. Like, no one, close your door, put a do not disturb sign for 30 minutes.
Yeah. I'm in a meeting right now. The food is meeting my mouth and you better leave me alone.
Exactly. And it was incredibly difficult for her. She had all the resources that she needed, but her being able to say, no, I can't help you right now to an employee was the hardest thing in the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah. And again, that's where you have to carve out that selfish space for yourself to say, this is my time, and I'll be there when it's over. I'll be back, and I'll be nourished, and my brain will be working better. I won't be hangry, and you'll probably like me more after I've eaten something.
Yeah. And what she was doing, because she would have like half a smoothie for breakfast also, or like a shaker bottle with protein powder, like not a breakfast, right?
Right.
She would go that entire time. And then at home, when she got home at night, her husband had made her a meal. She would eat the meal, and then she'd go into her room, and she had bags of candy that she would just mow down. And it was like this vicious cycle of like, because then she was emotionally eating at night, which is why she had the extra weight, right? And so there's this like, all of that resentment just built up throughout the day to the point where she needed the sugar rush at night.
Sure. Which is terrible to eat that much junk right before bed. Oh, bless her heart.
Yeah. I mean, and like, we were able to work through a good chunk of it, but it was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of psychological gravity behind that, right? There's the fear of everything, the catastrophizing that could, be built up in your self narrative. Yeah. Exactly. So I see her position completely, but it, you can show the mirror of the candy and say, this is not a good trade-off. It's not good for you in any way. Yeah. Good for you.
Equal trade-off.
Good for you. I'm glad she accepted her lunch sovereignty, her lunch period sovereignty.
I'm not even sure if we got her doing a full half hour, but we got her doing like 15 minutes.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm gonna take it. That's a win.
Yeah, I mean, it's enough time to put a little sustenance in your body and do what needs to be done, what nature would like to have happen, for your body. That's good.
Right. Yeah.
It's amazing what we do to ourselves. So I do want to also cover with you the Committing to Your Shit project.
Yeah.
And yes. And so Sailor Talk is welcome on as long as it's done in context. Yeah. So yes, committing to your shit, So.
Yeah. I swear.
Yeah. Same here. It's in context. It's relevant to what we're talking about. Yes. So get your shit together, people. Or shit Justin.
Well, no, and Sailor Talk is one of those things that I like. for a while I was like, oh, it doesn't look very professional, but anytime I try to not, it just happens still. So I decided it's part of my branding.
Yeah, yeah. And when I do follow to keep my brain healthy and jogging, I follow philosophy, and it is philosophical jargon is bullshit. And so it's woven in. So it's not necessarily a derogatory term or an insult. It's part of what they talk. In fact, there's a guy named Harry Frankfurt, and he wrote a book called On Bullshit. And it's about how it's self-deception essentially. And
Yeah.
or you're trying to project deceptive illogical thinking onto somebody else. So it's, which is classic. You're bullshitting somebody. So anyway,
Yeah.
so it's woven into the jargon of established, and the pillars of philosophy. So we're
right.
good. We're in a good space. Yeah. We're bracketing.
Philosophers agree with swearing. It's
Yeah,
fine.
there's noble academic people out there who use those words. So anyway.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
So
So
tell us about committing.
commit to your shit. Yeah. So commit to your shit. It's a women's accountability group. It's a co-working group. Shame-free, and it's really committed to guiding you towards balance, ease, and flow while working towards your business goals. And like me, it is geared towards women who are multi-passionate. It is geared towards women who's like, even if you're not ADHD, your brain just doesn't necessarily function in the standard 9 to 5 patriarchal, blah, right? And it's going after the idea. What is it called? Oh, there's this technique within the ADHD community of like, we work better if we have a buddy, even if there's nothing at all that we're doing the same. Doesn't matter. You need like a mirror just in the room with you, and so it's a virtual way of doing that, plus some coaching. So we get together Tuesdays 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern time. And I lead us through a little grounding exercise. I usually pull a card to just kind of give us some insight. One of the things that I almost always work on, because I'm doing work in this group too. One of the things that I almost always work on is my newsletter. So a lot of the time I'll get inspiration from whatever the card is that I've pulled. And I know other people do as well. And then for 60 to 90 minutes, roughly, we do our work. We do, you can do any work within it, but what I say is that we're working on the minimum non-negotiables, the things in your business that you're not going to do unless you have a little bit of support, but that you have to do. Like, my newsletter has to go out for marketing purposes. And I really enjoy writing my newsletter as well, but getting myself to sit down and do it is really hard. For other people, it might be invoicing. For others, it's answering emails. Sure. One person writes her social media content and like batches it during that time. So it's anything that you need to get done on a weekly basis. Yeah.
So you're creating space for that to be supported in doing the task that could be that hamstrung, thing where you can't get through it on your own. I love that. That is so creative.
And I'm there the whole time, available for coaching if you get stuck on things. Frequently, someone will just come off mute and say like, hey, can I ask, does this sound okay? And so you do have the opportunity for some feedback as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. Now, I will be providing all necessary and relevant information in the description field of this video. So if you are interested in working with Katie and that group, I will make sure that information is there. It's on her website, and it's easy to discover on the website, but I will make sure again that the access is down below and that we can get you there to participate in that, because I think that's such a beautiful utility and a necessary utility. Again, we are social creatures. I don't necessarily like the word tribal, but in certain contexts, tribal is good. And that's that you have a group that you can rely on to cover support and safety net and things like that. So that's just beautiful that you do that. So give me a couple other points, because I know we said we'd probably keep it to about an hour today, and we can always have the opportunity to get back and have more conversations. But regarding your coaching, let me hear some more about what you can offer, or let us, rather, myself and the audience, know more about what you do, what you can do for people.
Yeah, so I work either in one-on-one or group sessions.
Okay.
Um, uh, One-on-one sessions are either 6 or 9 months long. So no, 3 or 6 months long. There we go.
Okay.
We can go for 9, I suppose, if you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah. Why
Three or
not?
6 months long, meeting every week or every other week. It can be variable depending on the person. Um, and during that time, we're setting goals at the beginning of our sessions, and we're checking back in with them over and over and over again. And they're,
Okay.
as I said, they're generally surrounding business, career, creativity, but within that is certainly like I need to be out exercising more because my brain works better when I do that, or I'm staying up too late every night and that's why I can't get up and do the work that I need to do in the morning. There's lifestyle pieces that can come into play there. There's really specific business pieces and strategy that can come into play there. There's a lot that we can cover. Just because of my variety of experiences at this
Okay.
point.
Okay.
Yeah. And then my group program, Keeping It Balanced, is a relatively small group. I keep it small on purpose so that everyone gets the attention that they want, that they need rather.
Sure.
And it's a similar idea and format, just frankly in a lower priced option.
Okay.
But what's really great about that is that when you're in a group of people and someone states a problem that they have, and you're like, oh my God, I have that problem too. And I didn't even really realize that that was an issue that I should talk about. Group coaching is fantastic for that because you get a lot of questions answered in addition to your own specific stuff.
That makes sense.
There's the benefit of groupthink.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And also feeling more comfortable in a group environment, perhaps that you can be more expressive or, because something becomes relevant out of the conversation to you,
Yeah.
that you can feel comfortable sharing that. Because I'm sure
Yes.
vulnerability is a part of that people, when they're comfortable with each other and there's a trust in the circle, that things can be brought up with less apprehension.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely. And like in the group, like people do bring up some heavy stuff
Yeah.
at times. It's affecting them. And it's
Yeah.
affecting and I have a really solid boundary between like I can coach up to this point and then we're looking at other mental health help, right?
Right.
But you can go pretty far in a coaching direction without heading into the mental health aspect of things. So you can actually like work on your little t traumas while building your business. Like these
Okay.
things can coexist. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
to be perfectly healed before you can get things up and going.
Yeah.
um, and it also gives other members the opportunity to be the experts in other ways too, because they might have ideas that I don't have. I don't have to be the one with all the answers, so you have the benefit of the community mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Group intelligence.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And considering it's business owners, you've got a lovely networking group as well.
Oh, yeah. Gosh,
Yeah,
that's like icing on the cake.
yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah,
even
that's so cool.
girls.
So much to be said for group. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and women supporting women, which I think is really
And women
cool too.
supporting women. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say the group program is women only, but in my one-on-one coaching, I do work with women and men.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Good to know. And
Yeah.
so I'll ask a random general question for both, if there are for men and women who are listening to this conversation, what would you say to both men and women? Because the women can sort of put this into, they can pin it for when they need to talk to if they have a male partner. What would you say to men who are going to be supporting an aspiring entrepreneurial young woman or somebody my age, middle-aged woman who's branching out? Not that I'm a middle-aged woman, but a middle-aged woman in my age group. What would you say to their partners, their men in their lives? How can you be supportive and or stay out of the way? What are the boundaries necessary that you would
Yeah.
suggest?
Oh, I love this question. Okay. Um, I would say listen. I know that's very simple, but like
Oh,
listen to them.
okay.
Don't unless they are asking for help solving the problem, don't immediately jump to solving the problem.
Okay.
Like let them speak, let them bitch and moan, let them complain about things, listen to them. Because I see it similar, and I'm not saying it's the exact same thing, but I see it similar as living in a white body versus living in a black body.
Mm-hmm.
There is just an experience there that I won't ever understand.
Right.
There's just an experience there that I won't ever understand,
Yep.
that is going to create fears and beliefs that are not going to be logical to me. So growing up in a woman's body versus a man's body is going to be a similar situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then we could also throw in there growing up in a body that doesn't feel like the right gender. That's a whole other experience, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So listen and know that there's probably issues there that they're trying to work through, that if you grew up being lucky enough to be a white man, like you just might not understand it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not something that necessarily needs to be fixed right away.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I've heard that it's consistent with even my wife says, don't try to solve the problem. Just let me talk it out. And in doing that, I think there is some process of, realization and reflection
Mm-hmm.
and all these things going on. So yeah, you can derail that, I suppose, when you want to, be the hero, be the mansplainer, or whatever it is. And it's not,
Yeah.
I guess some men, it's their sincere interest to try to solve, because men are very, like,
Oh,
okay,
of course.
solve the
I
problem
think,
real quick and move on, and women are like, no, 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 no,
yeah.
you don't get this. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I do want to say, like, it is absolutely not to say that the intention behind fixing the problem is negative in any capacity. It's
As a
9 times
rule.
out of 10, it's meant out of love. It's I
Yeah.
want to help you. One of the best things that you can ask if you are in any way unsure about what kind of response the woman in your life is looking for, just ask them.
Yeah.
Do you need me to listen right now, or do you want help problem solving? I'm here for both.
Nice.
Right?
Nice.
Just
Yeah.
which one is it that you need? Because she might not know actually.
But she may
And so that
resent
can
if
also
you're.
help. Yeah, that can help her clarify, like, oh, is this an emotional thing that I just need to talk through? Or,
Yeah.
oh, do you have ideas? Well, what should I
Right.
do in this situation?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sincerely soliciting your
I actually
advice.
do want
Right.
advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
that one time where I wouldn't mind. Yeah. So that makes perfect sense. And I like that. And that's a hard one lesson for me, is that, and it wasn't arrogant mansplaining, but it was the desire to resolve the issue and move
Yeah.
on and get over it. Because, and I'm a little bit unique in the sense that I was raised by a single woman, but I also, before she became a single parent, it was a deeply dysfunctional household. And so I lived with that violence and the fighting and the domestic disputes and all that. So that's where my
Mm-hmm.
problem solving neurosis built up. It's like I would,
Yeah.
my whole life, I'm like, I just want to solve this, get it, move it on, make peace, get this thing, de-escalated and find the answers and then move on. And I had to go through a learning curve where, the whole world, my world isn't about that, period of conflict. It's about, nuance and subtlety. And like you said, I just need to talk right now and just listen. You'd be the best person in the world if you would just keep quiet
Yeah.
and listen to me while I say
Well,
something.
and to that end, I would also say, like, women, do the same thing with your men. Like, because like that, what a great example you just gave of, like, yeah, you're a white man. Doesn't mean that you haven't gone through shit too that, like,
Yeah,
has
it's all
affected
relative.
how you think. So, like, if you're coming at me with problem after problem after problem, I can just as easily say to you, like, do you need to vent or do you need me to problem solve?
Yeah.
It's just making sure. I think it's one of the most loving ways that you can make sure that your partner actually gets the thing they need.
That's gold. That's really
Yeah.
profound. And to put it that nicely too, because again, I think I figured it out, especially in my personal life, and that there's times I need to just shut up and listen, and there's times where I can
Mm-hmm.
that there is genuine desire to maybe have some options put out on the table that we can work with. And I've learned not to be dictatorial in that sense, that it's like, okay, I'm not dictating here. I'm just presenting what I might offer as my idea of a solution. So, you know, the language is good too, because things can devolve into what would be seen as mansplaining. And there are arrogant, you know, prick males out there who just, that's their default mechanism, which is a compensatory mechanism. You know, they're just, you know, their ego is riding on, you know, or they're fluffing themselves by, oh, somebody wants my precious advice. So, but if you're in touch with yourself, then yeah, the language, the delivery can be important, I think, when you're working with someone. So,
absolutely.
But yeah, what a wonderful, you know, what do you need? Let me be available in both regards.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I mean, you could take it the next step further and make it clear for what you're available for. Also.
Sure.
Like if you're just not in the headspace to be giving someone advice, just be clear. Like, you know,
turn the vacancy sign off. It's like, sorry.
Yeah, like I love you, but I'm not going to respond well right now.
You know? Or I honestly have no clue. This is a
or I honestly have no clue. Yeah. And that's, people are so bad at that.
Well, we want to think we have the answers, right?
Right. But like, yeah, I mean, the number of times that I've seen this advice over and over, like, you don't go to people who haven't done the thing for advice on the thing. If your husband, wife, partner, mother, best friend has never started a business before, why are you asking them advice? They don't know. They don't know, right?
There's nothing there that's pragmatic or experiential that can be offered. It's just sentiment at that point. It's like, and sometimes that's good. Like, you know, a young person who may not have the starts necessary. I could see where a mother might step in and say, you know, I know you really well. I probably know you better than anyone in the world. And so, you know, there's an intellectual or emotional maturity that you might want to make sure you're capable of doing this. And so check in with yourself. But that's an exception. So for the rule, don't go to somebody who has no clue. No clue.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I love it. One last thing that I'll throw out as a question, and I'll check in with you and see if you have anything else you want to bring to the conversation, is you have a history and a background in theater and the arts. And so what I've interviewed a couple of actors, and what I've always liked to ask people who are in the arts in theater and so forth is I'm going to guess that you have a nice perspective on playing a character and a persona and a role. And does that help you in your coaching and what you do? Because I never went through that process, but I can sort of see that, you know, when we do step out on a stage and we assume a character, that's a great example of how we kind of run our lives in general, is that we present characters to people or our persona to people. So if you could share on that.
I'm so glad you asked me this. I see so many parallels between what I do as a performer and what I do as a business owner. To start with, let's start with the characters example. Anything that anybody puts out on social media, I don't care how sincere you are trying to be, you're putting on a character. Right? So so you can use that to your advantage as a business owner and know that, like, yes, I'm trying to be sincere. I don't share things on social media with the intention of manipulating or lying to people, right?
Right.
But I do share things on social media with the intention of being an expert in my field and a business owner and a performer. Like, and those are three personas that, there's parts of me that I don't want to say like turn on, because I feel like that seems disingenuous, but like
you can bring forward, maybe.
I can bring forward, right? Like if I'm having a relatively like internal feeling day, but I have an interview, I can turn that on.
Okay.
Right? And it's something that yes, I partially know how to do that because I'm a performer. It comes really easily to me because I've been practicing it since I was like 4, right?
Yeah.
But it's absolutely a skill that you can learn. Flip it around, performers, creatives, artists, you are business owners, whether you want to be or not. If you are trying to monetize your art in any capacity, you need to not only like know that you're a business owner at baseline, but you need to own that you're a business owner.
Yeah.
And you need to have some version of a business mindset going on. Now, keep in mind, I don't have a business plan. I'm sure I'm going to freak some people out with that, but I don't have a business plan. I could not tell you how much money I've made this month because that's not my zone of genius. I have other people to help me with those things, right?
Okay.
So I don't mean that you have to you don't have to go get an MBA, right?
Sure.
But you need to be aware that, again, what you're putting out on social media has to be your business in some capacity. You do need to know something about marketing. You do need to know something about signing on clients or commissions. There's a lot of crossover between the two that, because of my unique experiences, I find incredibly easy to not only do but also to teach. And so if you are a business person who's looking to grow your confidence, become more visible, be better at getting out there, come talk to me. If you are an artist who doesn't understand the behind the scenes, how do I start marketing things, what is the strategy, come talk to me. All of that, it's all tied in.
Nice. Yes. You're getting me all worked up and excited now for charge. I'm going to go do something.
Yay!
Yeah, because we need it. We need those because again, I've been self-employed for 6 years, and I'm stepping into a real unknown with my next project. So I do need inspiration. I do need to check in with sort of validating or proof of concept that it's possible to create something, not necessarily from nothing, but from my nothing, from where I'm coming from in a sense. So I did food for so long, and then I opened a restaurant, and I love plants and horticulture. So currently I do have a landscaping business, and I know that from the back end and the front end. And so but the next thing I'm working on, nothing. So but I love that because, again, probably my ADHD is just oh, hell yeah, dude, I'm going to totally charge this thing. And if I screw up, I keep telling people, I'll just go get a job. I haven't had a job in 25 years, but I remember what it's like. And I can do it.
I could probably do that.
I could do that. I could go get a job. It's not that millions of people do it. So there's a safety net there. And I'm like, I don't care if I fail, at least I tried. I did something that sounded really radical, and I tried. So. Yeah. But again, this is inspiring to me to keep that fire burning and keep charging ahead in my usual bulldog manner that I
absolutely. And my view of pretty much, this is a slightly subversive view, but my view of pretty much any business is if you're interested in it, so is someone else. So it can be monetized.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make a full-time 6-figure income off of it, right? But if you're interested in it, someone else is too. Because I love me and my unique brain, but I'm not that special. Right?
Same here. Yeah.
Nobody is that special.
No.
Yeah.
That's a key takeaway for humility in starting a business, is that you may have a good idea and you may be a great person. You've got the the personality traits that are necessary to succeed in that regard, because I think that is a faculty that needs to be considered in especially if your services require human communication skills, right? You do have to have you've got to have some game there, I guess. But and you can cultivate game if and I think I'm not going to say that in an exclusionary way, that if you are somewhat introverted but you want to do this thing, that you should, because I'm kind of I'm sort of skitsy in that sense, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but I really am. I can be very extroverted, but there's other times when I just don't want to. I want to just be in a little space and quiet. So I go both ways on that, But I can empathize with either one. But I'd say don't ever let that be a hindrance to what you want to do. Be courageous, because. Go ahead.
There's a really great way of thinking about introversion versus extroversion that I think is really helpful for this, which is introversion and extroversion doesn't actually have to do with whether you want to be around people or not. It has to do with how you recharge.
There you go.
So I am very much an extrovert. I could happily go sit at a cafe all day and never feel like I'm around too many people, right? And I don't have to talk to anyone, but just by being around people, I'm recharging my batteries. Other people have to go be in their house, not talking to anyone for 2 days.
Yeah.
The difference, I think, is the introversion that you feel actual introversion where you're recharging your batteries, or is it a lack of confidence? Are you hiding because of whatever? Because you feel judged out in the world, because you're anxious, because of whatever reason, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Something to consider. Something for sure. Yeah, I think if you put a gun to my head, I am definitely a way out there extrovert. But like I said, there's times where I kind of get into this mode and I'm like, I don't want to be around people. I need my space. I need to hermit for a while, and then I can go out and I could go talk to a room with 300 people in it and not even break a sweat. But yeah, I don't know. I'm strange. Yeah, it is. It is.
A spectrum. Like I have time when I don't want to be around people. Yeah. It happens. Yeah. Absolutely. It's just that generally speaking,
right.
I don't go one day without talking to someone outside of my household. Like I've built my life around being an extrovert. And there's times when I'm like, okay, I'm done.
Time out. Yeah. Time out. Time out. Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Let me ask, is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap this up? Because it happens every time. We've gone like an hour and 15 or so minutes, and it just flows so quickly. So I just want to make sure we cover anything else that you might want to cover before we say goodnight for this one, in a figurative sense.
This was lovely. I think that's the thing I would like to say. If anyone is interested in working with me, you can head to my website, www.keepingitrealkatie.com. This was great. I had a great time.
Oh, wonderful. That makes me feel good because I like to have a warm space and convivial conversation and all that stuff, and then just being able to share ideas and thoughts, and so I'm glad it was a good environment for both of us to have a really nice and productive conversation. I think people can have good takeaways from what we discussed and covered. And as I said, all necessary information for Katie to get a hold of her, to discover her work will be there. And I'll also throw your YouTube channel in because yesterday I watched some of your content on YouTube, including you singing. Yeah, including you singing. So I'll put a link down there. God. And it was very lovely. It was very lovely. And I love to hear the female voice singing. So I was odd as a 22-year-old. I would go to Tori Amos concerts or the Indigo Girls, or I was very strange at 20. I mean, I would go to other shows like industrial or heavy metal shows, but I always had a warm spot in my heart for Sarah Mclaughlin. I saw her in concert, and I rediscovered someone the other day. Her name's Mimi Gazy, and she was in a group called Hugo Largo that was a Athens, Georgia band in the 80s when REM was really big. And Mimi Gazy has just such a lovely voice. It was a kind of staccato voice in the 80s, and now it's refined. She's probably about a few years older than me. And what a lovely rediscovery I had with her. But your song that I saw on your channel was lovely, and so I want to make sure that's discoverable too. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Katie, it's been wonderful, and I'll have you back. We'll check in with you, and we'll cover more terrain because we could go. It's unlimited there. When it comes to changing expression of yourself or transformative work, there's no boundaries. So I think we could have more conversations in the future, and I would definitely look forward to that. So
yeah, I would happily chat with you again. This is great.
Awesome. Thank you so much for engaging with me today, and I appreciate it very much. I'll say goodbye to you after I stop the record, but I'd like to also thank anyone who's with us to this point. So many people on YouTube are like, if you've made it this far, I get the sincerity in that. It's like, wow, you stuck around for an hour and 20 minutes. So much love to you guys. Thank you so much for staying with us in the conversation, and we'll see you later. So let me hit take care.